We have an interesting question here from a new subscriber who says that they are new to the world of fundamental analysis. They've only been trading with technical analysis for a couple of years now, and they are trying their hand at the fundamentals for the first time. But they do feel very out of their depth as a beginner, and just wants to know whether there's a way to make all of this just a little bit less complicated. So thanks for the question. And I can really understand where you're coming from. There was a time, believe it or not, when we also didn't know anything about the fundamentals. So I know how it feels to feel completely out of your depth with something like this. But the good news is that it's really like any other task that you set your mind to. You know, you don't build a house from the roof down, right? You build it from the ground up. And you also don't build a proper house without a proper foundation, and that doesn't take a day or 2 weeks. It takes a while. The most important element to embrace with this journey is that it will take time for you to reach the level of unconscious competence. Now, I personally think two of the biggest causes why many retail traders fail is because they never firstly get to grips with the reasons why the market is moving by studying and learning how the fundamentals work. And the second reason, I think, comes down to trading psychology, because you can have the best analysis skills in the world, you can have the best risk management process in the world, and have the best technical strategy in the world. But if you don't have the mental fortitude and the discipline which comes from better trading psychology, you're probably not going to make it in the long run. So when you tackle the fundamentals, right, make sure that, because it's such an important part of your trading journey, make sure that you understand that it's one of that key building blocks to a successful trading career in the long run, in my opinion. It's something that I won't ever trade without, ever. And for me, I won't trade something that I cannot analyze fundamentally to establish whether the asset is too expensive or too cheap. So to make it less complicated, as per your question, don't think of the fundamentals as, this massive, vast ocean of, insurmountable knowledge that you need to acquire in a very short space of time. But rather think of it as simple as buying a house. Would you buy a house without knowing exactly whether that house, where it's located? Would you buy it without knowing how big the house is, how many bedrooms it has? Would you buy it without knowing in what condition the house is in? Would you buy it without knowing what you can expect to pay in things like municipal taxes or property taxes? You see, the reason why you would want to know all of those things before you buy a house is because it helps you to estimate what the house is actually worth, right? So you want to know that whether the price that they're asking you for purchase, you want to know whether you're buying a bargain or whether you are buying something that's just overvalued. Now, trading is the exact same way. Where you are now as a beginner, think of your journey with the fundamentals in the same sense as buying a house. You're basically always trying to establish whether the asset that you want to trade, is this thing too cheap or is it too expensive? It's really as simple as that. And just like it will take you time to learn about a house's location or to learn about things like property taxes, it takes time to learn those things. And think of things like central bank policy and volatility and economic data. Think of all of those fundamental elements in the same way. They are just all parts of the same house that you basically need to make a better decision on a purchase. Now, you can certainly buy a house, of course, without knowing everything there is to know about properties. I'm sure that for those of you listening in as well, when you bought your first house, you probably didn't know everything there is to know about properties. You didn't know everything there is to know about the location and what to look for in houses, how to spot things like water damage and all of those types of structural stuff. You don't know that off the cuff, right? And just like you don't know everything there is to know about properties when you buy your first house, you can certainly trade the fundamentals without knowing everything there is to know about the fundamentals. Now, even though it seems like this massive, wall in front of you, imagine that you're a property developer, right? And you are in that career, you are going to be bound to buy some things that just end up as a bad investment. Because even though you scouted out a good location, you got that right, and even though the house was in a good condition, you got that part right, you might not have known about something like property taxes. Might not even know that existed. And you know what? After you made the mistake, after you had that bad investment, now you know about property taxes. And you won't make that mistake again when you buy a house because it costs you money. And in trading, it's the exact same way. You can certainly trade the fundamentals without knowing everything there is to know about it. And just like your imaginary property developer will make mistakes and learn from those mistakes, you will go through the exact same process in your trading as well. And it's not something that you can really rush, because there's so many things that simply just takes time to develop, and they take time to learn and time to embed in your own trading process. So I really want to encourage you, not to dread the learning process that's ahead of you. It really is an essential part of what you do need to go through to become a successful trader, in my opinion. So I hope that helps with your question. And obviously, as always, if there's any others, please don't hesitate to let us know.